Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and for this week's discussion board, we had to choose a Thinking Like a Clinician box from Chapter 11 and just discuss it and answer the questions. So I chose to do box 11.8, Thinking Like a Clinician. This case study offered Kathy and Lisa, who are, I assume, to be married or in a relationship together, and it appears as though they're seeking therapy due to, some communication issues and just discord in their relationship due to financial changes and just like struggling financially. So the first question, it just asks to identify the maladaptive interpersonal patterns shown in the dialogue. We're fortunate that this case study provided some lengthy dialogue between Kathy and Lisa, just what they were communicating to the therapist. So some of the maladaptive behaviors I picked up on from both Lisa and Kathy were just anger, avoidance, maybe withdrawing from each other, plenty of passive-aggressive communication in the dialogue, and also Kathy made mention of Lisa's wine drinking and how she's just drinking a lot of wine most nights when she comes home. So one of the behaviors that you may see when somebody is maladaptive would be resorting to substance use. And so while we don't always think of drinking wine, that it could be problematic, if Lisa's pointing it out, you would want to look and see what kind of impact that's having on their life as well. The second question just says, identify healthy interpersonal patterns shown in the dialogue. So while there was significant maladaptive communication between them, there was also some healthy behaviors observed as well. You could still see that Lisa and Kathy still care about each other. They still love each other, even if they don't know how to communicate that. The dialogue ended with Lisa asking the therapist, look, I love Kathy. I know she loves me. Like, how do we fix this? Not only that, prior to, the situation they're in now, it appeared as though they worked really well together as a team. They both had pretty good jobs and, contributed to the family, in equal parts, whether it was financially or emotionally or other things they, contributed to the household. So that's worth mentioning, as they did reference that. And then just awareness for themselves. So both Lisa and Kathy seem to be pretty self-aware. They're both aware that maybe they need to communicate better. They're both aware of what's bothering them about this situation. They just maybe don't necessarily know how to communicate that to each other to have like an effective result. And then the third question was just, at the beginning of the case study, it just asked you to come up with some kind of three reflective questions that we would ask if we were really in a session. So question 3 is just saying, reviewing the questions you came up with while listening to the session, and then create an intervention that might work with Kathy and Lisa. So for reflective questioning, I just kind of was trying to keep them focused on kind of what's happening right now, and then future oriented. So questions kind of like, what would your life look like if you guys, were able to effectively communicate and you weren't arguing right now? Like, how happy would you be? And then, asking, how do you both feel when you're having these different kind of this disruption in the relationship, when you're at odds at each other, what does that feel like? And one intervention that I think I would do would just be to kind of address the communication between Lisa and Kathy, and kind of help them improve their communication. So one thing that I would recommend they start doing is the use of I statements. So like, Kathy highlighted, Lisa highlighted, no, I'm sorry, I was correct. Kathy highlighted Lisa's wine drinking. So Lisa could say to Kathy in that moment, I really don't like it, when you drink XYZ amount of, glasses of wine, as it makes me feel like, we can't, talk about what's bothering you because, X, Y, and Z, something like that. So the use of I statements in communication when they have like a conflict that they want to address. And then another thing that I would recommend is that they start checking in with each other. Sometimes when you're in long-term relationships and you live with, your significant other, you get so caught up in a routine that you don't always think to stop and say, hey, how are you today? What's going on? So I would encourage them to make that a part of their routine, whether it's in the morning if they're eating breakfast together or at dinner, when they're eating, just to, simply check in. How are you feeling tonight? Did anything significant happen for you today? Anything good or challenging or anything that I could help you with? And so as, right now it appears that they need to improve the communication, and that they're not really doing this checking in with each other. I would recommend maybe, starting out small. So there's 7 nights in a week. So, at first getting used to this kind of check-in, because it may feel strange if they're not used to it. So maybe like 2 nights a week initially, checking in, and then we can discuss how is that, how did that feel? And then we can build upon that, throughout the day or the week. If there's a conflict you want to address, 2 times or something like that, use I statements, and then, we can build upon that as well. But essentially for what they're presenting, I think that starting small, because sometimes those small, changes can have a big impact, especially if they're not in the habit of just stopping what they're doing and saying, hey, how are you? How can I help? And then following up with them, in their next session and things like that.